What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Best of Best podcast. I am your host, Bess, and I am so happy you are here. Thank you for coming back week after week. Because we getting this thing going. I have people tell me, I listen to you when I'm in the shower or when I'm taking my kid to school. And I'm just like, I love that. Like, good for you finding time to really connect with yourself. Because even though, this is my podcast, I'm sharing my experience, but we are going through this together. And even though it is our own individual journey, like I said, I'm a passenger right along with y'all trying to figure it out. So I just love, that you all are taking the time to make time. I appreciate that. So today's episode is called Brace for Impact. And it was influenced by one of my favorite movies called Sully that's based on The Miracle on the Hudson. Now, this story is in sense nothing but an act of God and literally God's hand. Like, this man was highly qualified. This captain was highly qualified. And his credentials, longer than a notebook page. But this was nothing but God. So let me tell y'all. So on January 15th, 2009, there was a plane that was leaving from LaGuardia Airport in New York, going to Charlotte, North Carolina, CLT Airport. The captain of this plane, Captain Sullenberger, had started this day as he did for the past 40 plus years as a pilot. Now, like I said, this man's credentials is deep. Like, he's been in the military and he's been the captain and a fighter pilot and all type of stuff. So he's done this for years. So he said this day started off like any other day. I called my wife, let her know I was going to be home later on. I think the plane was supposed to land in Seattle. So it was from New York to Charlotte, then Charlotte to Seattle. And then he was supposed to go home. So he says, the plane takes off from the jet bridge, and for the first 100 seconds, everything was normal. He says he sees ahead of him, probably 2 football field lengths away, just a flock of birds. And so he says it wasn't enough time for him to redirect the plane. So he had no choice but to collide with the birds. And so they call this a bird strike. So he had no choice but to collide with the birds. And these weren't like regular small birds, like a pigeon or something. These were Canadian geese. So just to give you some perspective, these birds, their wingspan can span out like 5 or 6 feet. They can weigh up to 12 pounds. So these are big birds. Imagine a plane flying into a flock of birds. The birds were instantly sucked into the jet engine of the plane, and the plane loses thrust in both engines simultaneously at over 3,000 feet in the air. And so to give you some perspective of how high that y'all know that's high. So the Empire State Building, that's that like huge skyscraper building in Manhattan. That building is 102 stories high, which is only 1,250 feet. So this plane was more than double the size of the Empire State Building and having just lost engine thrust in both engines at the same time. So Captain Sully calls air traffic control and he says, we just had a bird strike. I need to return back to the airport. Now, it amazes me how calm this man is, because if it would have been me, I would have been going crazy. So to see it happen, like head on to see it happen, he said he felt feelings and like heard noises in the engine in the plane that he had never heard in over 40 years. He had never heard these sounds before. So he knew something was wrong. The patience and the humbleness of this man in the midst of this emergency was crazy. It's admirable to begin with. So he calls and he says, lost both engines. We need to return back to the airport. So the air traffic control guy is like, don't worry, I'm clearing a runway for you. So he clears the runway. He dispatches to Sully and says, you can land back at LaGuardia. So Captain Sully is like, no, that's not going to work. We don't have enough time, because at this point they're descending back down to earth at the speed of 2 elevator floors per second. They're descending back down to earth with no engine thrust and no runway ahead of them. So he says, that's not going to work. I need something closer. So they say, we're going to send you to Teterboro Airport, which is in New Jersey. And so he says, okay, he's going to go to Teterboro. So he clears the runway in Teterboro, lets them know it's okay to land. Captain Sully says he recognizes we're not even going to make it to Teterboro. And so he instantly started looking for spaces that he could land the plane that was smooth enough, wide enough, long enough that he could use as a runway to land this plane. And so he contacts back and they're like, we're not going to be able to make it to Teterboro. We're going to end up in the Hudson. And as you can imagine, the air traffic control guy is like, the Hudson what? Not the Hudson River. Yes, the Hudson River. We're going to end up in the Hudson River. And so the air traffic control guy is like, can you repeat that? You're going to end up where? And he says, we're going to end up in the Hudson. And so the air traffic control guy he instantly starts contacting people, because this man is freaking out. But mind you, Sully is calm. It's almost a little suspect how calm Sully is. So Sully is calm, and he says to his co-pilot, he was like, do you have any other ideas? And the co-pilot was like, no. So they just did it. He said, in that moment, I only had the opportunity to make one announcement, and I knew that whatever I said, I knew that whatever I said needed to be impactful. It needed to create a sense of urgency, but not to the point that it panicked people. And he said that he picked it up, and he said, I only had the opportunity to make one announcement. And so the announcement that he decided to make was brace for impact. When we are aligning ourselves with the purpose that God has for us, we face uncharted territory. We go into situations and things almost blindly because we never experienced this before, right? When somebody makes a decision to say, I'm going to do better, or let's say somebody makes a decision to say, I'm going to break generational trauma. I'm going to break generational chains that have been placed on my family, right? To do that, you're going to have to do something that nobody's ever done in your family to that point. So that means you're pretty much going to be the guinea pig. You're going into it blindly. You don't even know what to expect. And that's what happens sometimes when we're aligning ourselves with the purpose that God has for us, and we're elevating to the best versions of ourselves. Sometimes it will encompass for you to charter unvisited territory that you've never been before. And so that's why we got to stay ready, so we ain't got to get ready. In the midst of becoming the best versions of ourselves and really identifying who we are, we have to be prepared, and we have to brace for impact. And especially when you decide to do better in life, do you ever notice how all of a sudden now you got all these obstacles that you didn't have before? Like, damn, when I wasn't doing nothing, I didn't have to face all of these things. These things weren't obstacles in my life. But now that I decided I want to do better, now all of this arises. And when the devil sees you, come on now. When the devil sees you trying to do better with your life, of course, he's going to throw obstacles in there. But also remember that nobody ever said it would be easy. Like, yeah, the destination is sweet, but nobody ever said that the journey that it takes to get there is going to be sweet, because there will be trials and tribulations, and you will be tested. In one of my last episodes, we talked about the promise, and how when God promises us something, that doesn't mean we're gonna possess this promise without the process. I wouldn't even want to possess the promise without the process, because the process is how you get prepared for the promise. Come on now. So Captain Sully makes an announcement, and he says, brace for impact. And so he says almost immediately he heard the flight attendant saying, head down, stay down, head down, stay down. They said they didn't know what was happening. But on the front end, Captain Sully say he basically eyeballing the river and trying to figure out the perfect altitude, latitude situation so that he can land the plane properly. So he's saying he has the co-pilot like shouting out to him the altitudes that they're at so that he can eyeball the perfect opportunity so that he can land this plane in this water. Have you ever experienced a situation in which, in the midst of aligning, or maybe you asked God for something in the midst of receiving what you asked him for, it was unexpected things that happened? I'm going to tell you, I feel like we've all experienced this. You ain't never said, Lord, if it's anybody in my life, see, I ain't even going to finish it because I know, You ain't never said, if it's anybody in my life that ain't supposed to be here, Lord, I ask that you remove them, all that kind of stuff, right? You ask to remove anybody in my life that's not supposed to be there, right? And you start to see, I didn't expect to see, people that I've truly, truly cared about. I mean, my best people. Some of my best friends dropping off. My favorite cousin dropping off. My relationships with people that I thought were so strong started to crumble. And I'm like, well, hold on. Wait a minute. I didn't mean them. And that be the thing. When God promises you something, he ain't promising you how you gonna get there. And sometimes in our mind, we think we gonna get to that destination. We gonna get to that promise without being phased, without being transformed. But sometimes what we're asking for requires some sort of transformation that needs to happen, whether or not it aligns with what we expect or what we want. A transformation needs to happen. If you're asking God to break generational chains, right, you may have to develop some skills that it's required for you to be able to do that. If you say, I want to have an open line of communication, I want to have an open door policy with my child, right? That's something, that I am trying to instill and cultivate a relationship of openness with my son so that he can come to me and talk to me about anything, because that's a space that I recognize that I needed so much growing up, that I didn't have available to me, was an open space to talk about anything, how I'm feeling, whether or not they felt it was right. But just to have that open space. So that's what I'm asking for. But you know what that will require from me? That will require for me to have an open mind. That will require for me to be non-judgmental and really truly create a space where my child feels comfortable enough to be able to talk to me. Right? That will require work on my end. So Sully lands this plane on the water, right? And in this moment, everybody calling the police because they see this plane just diving for the Hudson River. So everybody's calling the police, right? So Sully lands the plane, and he says immediately when he lands the plane just kind of bounces. And the first thing that he said when the plane came to a halt and just kind of a slow cruise on the water, he said he looked at the co-pilot and was like, that wasn't that bad. That wasn't that bad. So how are you bracing for impact? Now, in a situation with Sully and his plane, you can only do so much to brace for impact. You got to put your head down. But I mean, that's pretty much all that you can do. But in life, when you brace for impact, for me, that means I need to stay rooted with my creator. That means I need to stay rooted to the foundation of who I am. So he lands the plane, right? And so the front of the plane wasn't really phased. It was the back of the plane, because the back of the plane came down on the water first. So the people in the back of the plane had a way different experience than the people in the front. So he lands the plane, and as the plane comes to a slow glide, he basically calls for evacuation. So they blowing up the slide, the inflatables, and they getting everybody out the plane, because now at this point, water is rushing into the plane, and it's wintertime in New York. It's like 38 degrees. So imagine how cold this water is. So they're telling everybody to evacuate, get out, and Sully's going up and down the aisle, making sure that everybody gets out. He was the last person on that plane. He made sure that every single person got off of that plane before he stepped foot out onto the wing of the plane where everybody else was standing, and somewhere in like inflatables. And before they knew it, within 3 minutes, there was a trolley that was coming to take people off of the plane and to rescue the people. And that goes to say that sometimes when you in the midst, you feeling defeated, God always sends that rescue. God always comes in clutch with the rescue. Come on, because within 3 minutes of them landing in that water, there was someone coming to them. Within 3 minutes of them landing in that water, there was a trolley there. Not even a trolley that was sent like by the police. It was a trolley that was normal, back and forth routine. It was a water taxi that was there rescuing people, getting people inside of the boat to save them. It was a devastating 4 hours. 4 hours before Sully got the confirmation that every person on that plane survived. Every single person. And out of 155 people, only 2 people were severely injured. But everybody survived. That story gets me every time. Because just when you think that you're forgotten about, nobody sees you, you're withstanding the test, the storm, the challenges that you're facing are just too high for you to overcome. God helps you to figure out a way to use those obstacles as stepping stones. This is a testament to my life, y'all. God helps you to utilize those obstacles and turn them into stepping stones towards greatness. So keep bracing for impact. Keep being prepared for the unexpected, because the unexpected is expected. Okay. Keep shining and keep knowing that this journey that you on, you were destined to be on this journey. This didn't happen. It didn't happen by chance. It's just not a coincidence. You are where you're supposed to be. And just keep trusting and keep the faith, not only in yourself, but in God too. He got the plan. He the master plan, the master creator. He will bring it all to fruition. Just continue to trust in him and continue to charter those uncharted waters. All right, y'all, let's get into these positive affirmations. I'm feeling all the feel good feels. Positive affirmations are just those little pep talks that we give ourselves to uplift our spirits in a time where we really need it. And sometimes you could just do it as repetition just to, remind yourself, because sometimes we forget. Just to remind yourself to stay positive and everything will work out to the Lord's desire and to your favor. So let's go. You can repeat after me, or you can say your own, whatever resonates most with you. I embrace the unknown with confidence. I trust in God's purpose for my life and that he will guide me. I am prepared for the unexpected, knowing that God has a plan for me. And I welcome the twist and the adversity that comes along with being the best version of myself. And today, I will have a great day. Let's go be great, y'all.